Our focus here today at Psychology Ninjas comes from paper 2 and one of the optional units, criminal psychology. Here we're focusing on social explanations of crime or antisocial behaviour. So we need to think about this as a theory still, so we're still thinking about key terms and explaining those in relation to criminal behaviour specifically. Actually, when we're talking about social explanations, we're thinking about explaining the key terms in lots of different social explanations. Be careful here, because social learning theory is in learning theories in paper 1, but it's in social explanations on paper 2. We want to be making direct links from our key terminology, attention, retention, reproduction and motivation, to criminal behaviour. We also want to be thinking about role models and vicarious reinforcement, that actually we're witnessing the secondary reinforcement of other people gaining money and social status, and that's influencing us to participate in criminal behaviour. Then moving through to a new explanation, which you may be less familiar with, is labelling. That acts in themselves are not criminal, it's how we attribute or label them. Some behaviours are thought of as crimes, some deviant, some antisocial, and who has the power and status in which to give those labels. We're also thinking about those labels having a sense of power or impact in society, having social capital. Finally, we move on through to the self-fulfilling prophecy. Key bit here is for something to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, that label has to be accepted by the individual. Only then are those behaviours encouraged or amplified. So how are we going to evaluate? Well, this is a SODA structure, and we're going back to those key elements of supporting, opposing research, a different theory, and application. What we always want to think about here when we're doing our evaluation is having counter arguments. Being really clear, yes, there's research support. We've picked one from Anderson and Dill, but you could go for your own favourite. But actually giving that counter argument of saying, well, most of this research is correlational, and therefore we've got difficulties in concluding cause and effect, and we can't explicitly test criminality because of ethical reasons. Here, we want to give mini conclusions all the way through, and we've picked external reliability for consistency of findings. Okay, so how does this break down? As you can see here, the big difference is we can go up to 16 marks for our evaluate questions. This means that we've got 6 marks of AO1, so we need to flesh out those explanations that we've already talked about, and 10 marks of evaluation. So we want to be doing all of the aspects of SODA. So when we're thinking about this, we want to work along our way, giving some explanation and then some evaluation as we go. So first of all, we're going to explain attention, retention, reproduction and motivation. Then we're going to give the research support in terms of Anderson and Dill. Equally, you could talk about Bandura's research here from 1961 or 1965, but you've got to make sure that you're linking that to criminal behaviour, to violence and not just aggression, as we've talked about. Okay, from here then we're thinking about our opposing research. We've introduced and explained role models and vicarious reinforcement. So we're opposing this research because most of this is talking about criminality being a passive process. In fact, it's active. People seek out certain role models because we want those associations. It's not just like we're walking around our daily life and we go, oh wow, there's a criminal act, let me watch it. We would seek those out. Then we're moving through to alternative explanations. We've gone for XYY as a genetic explanation. Our mini conclusion here is that it's reductionist and it's only giving us part of the puzzle. Here we're moving through to labelling, and we're going to be saying about the inconsistent findings in terms of labelling. Here we're talking about Zebrowitz and the baby-faced boys. So even though they looked more sweet and innocent, actually they were more likely to be delinquent, rejecting that label. We're going to oppose that with research that supports the role of labelling. We've gone for Jehoda here, and how because of the names and the associated traits with that name, that boys who were born on Wednesdays were 3 times more likely to be arrested than those born on Monday. Our mini conclusion here is talking about extraneous variables, that there must be something else that we need to account for about whether we accept or reject the label that we're given. Finally, we're going to talk about the self-fulfilling prophecy, and that this has application in terms of reducing negative labelling and reintegrating people. Here we want to talk about Braithwaite's ideas about reintegrative shaming, that actually we take away the stigma of the label of criminal behaviour, that these people have paid their debt to society and therefore coming out of prison, they are going to be reintegrated in order to stop that revolving door. We're going to counter this by saying that actually there is a role of the media in creating these self-fulfilling prophecies. Lots of different examples you could go for here. Child's Play 3 being linked to the James Bulger case. We've gone for the video game Doom being associated with the mass shooting in Columbine High School. Here we're talking about the credibility of these explanations, that actually if we can reduce offending by changing labels, therefore these theories have validity and credibility in explaining criminal behaviour in the first place. Let's have a look at an exam question and how this one breaks down. Here we've got a discuss question. This means that some of our marks are coming from explanation and therefore we need to explain our different social explanations. So again, we're talking about our social learning theory, vicarious reinforcement, labelling, self-fulfilling prophecy. And we need to link those for our application marks into marks behaviour, lifting information from the STEM. Let's have a look at a different exam question. We've still got a STEM here, but we've got a change in command word. To what extent? This is similar to an assess question, and therefore we would need to reach judgments throughout. You may well want to start with your judgment about how effective social explanations are in explaining Eva's behaviour and her concern about her brother. Here we want to be making sure that we outline our social explanations, and again we're making links to Eva in terms of how these different explanations would link into this scenario in a slightly different way. Within our to what extent questions, our final set of marks are coming from our evaluation. So this stays at 6 marks for AO1, our explanation, that's still the same level of detail. We get 4 marks for our application and then a further 6 marks for our evaluation. We want to make sure that you're balanced in terms of these different assessment objectives, and a really good way to do that is to physically practice this with different colours. Thanks for joining us today here at Psychology Ninjas. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that bell. See you next time.